Lori, just so you know, this is not a normal sales meeting. We're not going to be having any vendors speak today. Okay, this is just going to be me talking about the NAR ruling that's coming down and the settlement. And then as soon as I'm done speaking about it, obviously we'll have a question and answer session during it. And then we have a CE class with Ohana title. What is it about?
It's relationships.
Relationships.
That's what this industry is about, right? It's
Absolutely.
So
It is the number one thing in this industry is relationships. So that's going to be what takes place afterwards. Okay, so Jen will not be here, just so you know that. So you can all be disappointed now. She's got pulled away to another commitment. So I have attended 2 different NAR meetings, leadership meetings, UAR meeting, the MLS meeting that you all might have been on as well, all about this same topic. And everybody knows the exact same information, which is this might just change still. So everything that they've come out with that the settlement has might even just change come July when the judge actually looks at it. Because the judge can accept it or he can say, no, I want it to be this way or this. Right. So we're going to be ahead of it though, because of all the leadership stuff that we do. Hey, Tana, it keeps saying connecting to cloud server. Is that on my end or is that?
Yeah, I don't see that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the big thing about it is not to panic. Okay, I'm not panicking about it. I've done this for 25 years now. I've seen change in the industry happen so much. This is just another little shift, and this is a very little shift, honestly. So what's that mean? Okay, anyway, what's happening is that, and we gave you some handouts if you didn't get one in the back. That's just for you to look at later. We're not going to go through that handout or anything now. That's just the NAR questionnaire that they've put out, questions and answers. But I'm going to go over things that I've talked about with Curtis from the Salt Lake board. He's our contract attorney there, and different meetings that I've had. So like I said, the biggest thing is that right now it's business as usual. There's no reason to think any otherwise until we get the final ruling, which will be probably around July. Okay. So having said that, what changes? So the BAC cannot be put on the MLS as on the listing sheet. Okay, that's taken off. Now we've already made those adjustments, gone down to 0, that kind of stuff, but now they want it completely removed. So what that means is that you can market it other places, like plenty of other places. It just will not be on the MLS. And then we cannot go create a new MLS thinking that we can then put it on that new MLS as a nationwide system. We can't go creating another one. So where can it be put? It can be put on your website. It can be put on the company website. It can be put on social media. It can be put on your showing time messaging. That's part of the MLS, right? It can be put in many other places that the seller's offering a BAC, okay? Does this mean that the seller is going to get out of paying a BAC? Absolutely not. That's not even what this conversation is about. It's about having that conversation, that crucial conversation with your seller, saying nothing's really changed. It's just a matter of it won't be put on the MLS as a guaranteed matter of compensation. So yes, you can still negotiate between the buyer and the seller in the contract, right? We have those forms for that to adjust the BAC compensation that the buyer's agent will be paid. That's all normal stuff. That can still happen, okay? Yes, Utah is way ahead of the game. We already do offer the buyer's agency commission agreement form. We're one of only 8 states that actually offer that in the United States. The rest all have to get their crap together and form and create one. And yes, UAR is already teaching many states on how we do it and how to do it. We will be making adjustments to that form depending on how the ruling ends. We're just the forms committee is already waiting on that to happen. We'll be making adjustments on that form. We'll be making adjustments on the negotiating the commission form, and we'll be making adjustments on the listing agreement. Okay. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go right ahead.
You've got July 2024 up there. So as we go this weekend for
it's normal.
We are business as normal.
Business as usual, normal.
And we can put the BAC
Yep.
on the MLS
Yep.
until you guys tell us different.
Yep, it'll all be on there until the final ruling comes. Business as usual, and we'll make the adjustments in July, however they change, okay? Okay, the other thing that's a big deal is that you must have the buyer agency agreement signed before you can even show one house, before you can even meet them at the property. It has to be signed. So that's actually a good thing because now agents are being forced to raise the bar, okay? And those agents that can't seem to get that signed, they can go out of the business and go do something else. Okay, this is only going to be a better thing for us. Okay, plus you should have been getting that signed the whole time, not trying to work for free, which goes into our next thing. You can never now use the term we work for free, meaning the seller's going to pay the commission, I work for free. You can't use those terms anymore unless you're absolutely taking a zero commission on the transaction. That's part of the settlement. Okay. Another thing, part of the settlement is that when you do have a BAC filled out and you put, let's say you put 2.5% on there, you cannot then later at any time raise it to a 3% or even anything higher. You can go lower, you can accept lower, but you cannot raise it. That's in the terms agreement too. Any questions on any of that stuff? Yes.
Explain that again. So.
Okay, so let's say you've got a BAC filled out and you put 2.5 or 2%, then you cannot raise it higher. Yeah, so you would probably start with a 3%, let's say, and accept lower. And then
You mean for the buyer broker?
for the buyer broker agreement, yeah. Can I what?
So in other words, you would not be able to.
No, I'm used to doing that with Jen, so it's like, can you get out of the picture? Yes, I can get out of the picture. Yes, yes.
So if you negotiate with your buyer 2.5%, but the seller is willing to pay 3%, can you still get 3%?
That's a great question. Yes, you can, because this is coming from the seller. The buyer's responsibility would only be up to 2.5%.
And then the seller, the rest.
The seller's gonna pay it anyway, so.
How do you work that paperwork wise?
So there isn't any necessarily paperwork to adjust because we don't adjust it now.
Right.
We've always dealt with it now. But I did have an agent reach out to me and say that they were being paid, let me think. They were being paid 2.5%. And the seller was paying 3%, and they wanted something in writing guaranteeing that they didn't have to cover that extra 0.5%.
The buyer,
Yeah, the buyer wanted something in writing.
an addendum.
And I said, well, write an addendum to that, just stating those things, that they're not going to be held responsible for that. And that's okay. And it's simple language. Yeah.
On the MLS meeting, I thought they said you cannot get more than what's in here. Buyer broker.
No, they're saying that from the buyer, you cannot charge the buyer more than what's on their contract. The seller can pay you more, seller can pay you a bonus. The seller can do what they want to do.
You can't say the buyer wants 2.5%, the seller's pumping it to 3%, try and bump the buyer up. The buyer stays.
Hey, Tana, are you able to hear all the questions, or do I need to repeat the questions from the audience?
I can hear them if everyone's quiet.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the new conversations and education that must occur will be with the buyer. Let's say this is what ends up taking place, right? And so that conversation is going to be still with the listing agent first. Are you guys offering any type of buyer agent commission? Because obviously it's not going to be on the MLS. You have to have that conversation. So listing agents have to be better at communicating. Do they all communicate and answer their phone? No. So that might be a struggle with the lesser agents that are out there. Okay. But we as professionals will communicate that, yes, my client is willing to do this. Okay. Yes.
You said it can be like on a line showing instructions.
It can be on a line. It can be on showing time. It can be anywhere except the MLS sheet. Yep.
I need clarification on that. Can you only put sellers willing to pay a BAC, or can you put the amount?
You can put either. You can put a dollar amount, you can put a percentage, you can put whatever the seller's willing to do. Does that-
Willing to negotiate BAC.
Right, just willing to negotiate, yes, that's a good term. Any other questions on that? Okay, so again, you can't say it's free, okay, we talked about that. And there's no standard or typical commission, there never has been, right? I've been doing this 25 years and I learned that was first thing I learned was you cannot say there's a standard or typical. Well, the attorneys for the others, for the plaintiffs have all said that there is one and that we all go by it. Yeah, I wish I was there. Oh, it's really bad back in other states where they don't even have the BBA. And so they use what's called like a sales agreement with the buyer and different kind of crazy stuff. And we go into all this stuff with NAR over the years. I just shake my head and go, man, I'm so grateful that Utah's already figured all that out. So we only have to make a little adjustments here in this state, but most of the other states have to figure it out, have to get it done right. And so, yeah, there's a leadership committee that Chris Kyler's on. You know who Chris Kyler is? He's the CEO of UAR, okay? And he's already told us all this stuff that they are already teaching other states how to implement this through legislation, okay? And so speaking of legislation has already been started at the national level to allow Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to allow closing costs to be buyer's agent commissions if it needs to be. So that has to happen legislatively because they're a government entity. So that's already
Which
started.
means they can roll that into a loan.
Exactly. It can be rolled into the loan and considered that closing cost. Yeah, that's all tied together. So all the legislation will cover all that. Hi, Terry.
Just with that, would it roll up to be like an MIP thing where it would be above the actual loan amount on an FHA, or is it going to be considered?
That question's too early. Yeah,
Sorry, that's just where my brain.
that's a higher level than my pay grade question at this point. So, okay. All right, let's see.
Can you explain to us why they took the BAC off the MLS? Like, what was the benefit of that?
What triggered it?
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. So the case itself, the question is, what was the case? So the case was, and it started back in Missouri, and then some copycat lawsuits happened, and then more copycat things happened. So, and I'll tell you, this is Steve Perry's version of this, okay? So the fact that we're recording this is probably not a good thing. So I'll keep it G-rated with my language. Okay. So what happened is, these attorneys, okay, got together, and these attorneys have now requested $84 million in their fees in part of the settlement, okay? If they went after and interviewed a whole bunch of sellers and said, were you forced to pay a buyer's agent commission? And so they all say, yeah, I was forced to do that. Not, did you agree to do this contractually? Like it really happened, right? Were you forced? Did you have a choice? And they all said no. So then they reached out to everybody back east in Missouri who ever bought a house and asked them all the same question. Were you forced to do this? And they all said, yeah, I had to pay a buyer's agent commission. Did you have an option to not pay it? And they all said, no, I don't believe I had an option to not pay it. Okay. That's how the attorneys went after it, okay? So they got all these people to do this class action lawsuit, which, by the way, even though it's settled for the hundreds of millions, they said that the sellers will probably get about $10 each. $10. The attorneys are getting 84 million, okay? So who does this, right? Who benefits from this? Yeah, right. So there you go. So that's how it was started, was that the sellers are forced to pay a buyer's agent commission. Okay. That's how it all started. Okay. And so then when it went to court, this one good old boy attorney in Missouri would walk up to the judge and say, Judge, I want to explain this. 10 stupid NAR attorneys full in $1,000 suits walk up at the same time. Every single time in this court in Missouri. 10 corporate attorneys, one good old boy. Okay. The good old boy won the jury. I mean, that's law 101, right, is you don't bring 10 suits up against one good old boy who's walking with a cane now or whatever and has crocodile boots on or something, right? You don't do that. And they did it and they lost the case. Okay. The jury was already on his side a long time before it ever got settled. Okay. So the appeals happened. Well, the appeals were because of the lawsuit, and the treble damages are 3 times that. So it was going to be in the billions. We all, as leaders for UAR, we got together and we were like, how is this going to play out? Let's do all the what if scenarios in a meeting. And NAR was going to end up being bankrupt. There's no way. They didn't have enough assets. They don't have enough cash on hand. We're like, close Chicago. We only need DC. We're providing them with answers. And Chris is giving them these answers, right? Meanwhile, Kenny gets ostracized and gets kicked out of as the president. The next gal, Tracy, she gets ostracized and falls on her sword too, gets kicked out. And we're looking like crap nationwide. Right. So now we've got the next guy in line steps up, says, okay, I'm going to change things. And so the biggest question that Chris Kyler asks them in his high leadership meetings is, who's steering the ship here? We have now a temporary CEO because that guy resigned. Right. And so it's like, where's NAR going? What's happening with NAR? Do we need NAR? We've got all kinds of contingencies in plan. What if NAR fails and collapses? Okay. And I'm already taking up way too much time, but we still have it all in place. We have different plans. Okay. And so what ends up happening is we knew that was going to be in some type of settlement, or else they would file bankruptcy and they would dissolve because the members don't support it. So I'm one of 800 national board of directors. Okay. The board of directors, we were not even consulted on this settlement happening. We didn't even know. Okay. We don't get to steer the ship as board of directors. The executive team comes out and we're all pissed and they're, believe me, we have a hub where everybody goes to and voices their opinion. And sometimes that's not a good thing, but having to get those emails every single day is daunting. And they're all saying, why did you guys make the decision? Why did you settle? Well, they don't have an idea or what's going on half the time either, right? They're not as good as the information I'm getting from Utah and everything. And so they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. So they said, well, we have the power and authority granted in our bylaws that says the executive team can make these certain decisions. Okay. Should they have done it that way? In my opinion, no. Should they have brought it to us over email or whatever and said, hey, this is what we're considering. Let's take a vote, right? Instead, like when I go to DC in a month to meet with our legislators and have NAR meetings and stuff, could be a hot topic, right? We all thought that in November when I went there and we had this big meeting and they whitewashed it. They didn't even let it be on the agenda about Kenny, about anything happening. They didn't let us vote on it. Instead, we voted on stupid crap that was already decided. And there's a lot of kiss ass people out there that are board of directors that just drink the Kool-Aid and do whatever they say. But there's a lot of us that don't. And we question what actually is happening and try to make a difference, and it gets shut down. Okay. So the gospel, according to Steve Perry, is we don't need NAR except for legislative things, which is a big deal. So how would we change and get what we would lose, right? Utah's already set up that if it did fail, that Utah's fine. We are set as a state. We have all our legislative things in place. We have everything. We work together with the MLSs, everything that most states don't have. So here in Utah, I was never worried. And we always tell people it's business as usual until we get a final decision. Okay, so that's what happened with this, is they were found guilty by that jury, and there was a $1 billion judgment against them, which goes clear up to 3 to 5 billion. And then the others, all of a sudden, the day after, then they waited to file a separate lawsuit against California because they're so big. Then they waited to file a separate lawsuit against all the major real estate companies across the country. Okay. And those are all just copycat things. All those go away. Okay, except for companies that actually did $2 billion in residential sales last year or 2022. We didn't do that we did over $1 billion in our company, but it wasn't just residential sales. It was commercial, it was property, it was everything all together. So we are excluded from any of the lawsuit. We're part of the protected class, and of course, so are all you agents. And so we're in a great position to keep moving forward with business. Okay. In fact, business is so good. We did 41 transactions last week alone in the company, which is fantastic, right? So that's really good. Okay, does that explain what happened? It's a mess. Believe me, it's a mess.
Hey,
So
Steve.
yes.
Oh.
Question, Steve. Do we still need to be members of NAR?
So, okay, that's a great question. So the question is, do we still need to be members of NAR, and why? Yes, we still have to, because we are still part of NAR, UAR, right? And your board. We're all still part of that. Until that changes, then we would have to look at what will happen, right? But as of now, yes, absolutely, we still do. And we're still supporting RPAC, legislative stuff. A lot of great things happen and are still happening. This is a very big distraction of what's happening, but it's not the whole program of NAR. Like, I'm on the communications committee for NAR as well, with all the advertisements and everything like that. And it's a tough pill to swallow because I don't totally agree with everything they're doing. So yes, we're still part of it. We still need to be until something happens.
Okay, speech again.
Was there a question online?
Yeah, so there's a few. So it's one of them says, could you have language in the agent notes, one that MLS has as to where the BBC is advertised
Wait, say it again.
for commission offerings?
Say it again, Tana.
Is Brian online? Does he just want to say the question?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you just want to rephrase it better than me?
Yeah, I just wondered where you can't advertise the BAC there, or the BBC or whatever they're calling it now. Could you put notes that say, my offering is on my website at www.whatever, or reference that? Is,
Yeah,
you know,
you could reference-
like an indirect way to send people there.
Sure, you could reference things to other places. Absolutely. You just can't say it in the remarks or anything on that page.
And does that have to say Presidio?
What?
On his website, it has to say.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, his website.
Well, it has to be, yeah, that doesn't change.
So
Any
there's
other,
more. Yeah.
what else you got,
Can you
Tana?
reference your website on?
Yes, you can put a link. Absolutely.
A link on the MLS.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. What else you got, Tana?
Suzanne, do you want to say it or do you want me to?
No, I think it was just answered, so we cannot put the BBC in our agent notes. No.
No.
Okay.
Anything else, Tana?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so
Is the BAC field on the MLS, that's been removed
That's gone.
already, right?
It-
That's
it-
already
yeah,
been
it's
taken.
gone. Yeah, it's already
So we
gone.
can't-
Yep. Okay. So you do have the questions and answer sheets. If you didn't get one, we'll make more copies of it. Make sure you have that. That's really the gist of what's happening. Yes, JD?
So from my perspective, Steve, it's safe to say that Utah's in a really great spot.
Yep.
Okay. It's also safe to say business as usual till this ruling in the summer.
Yep.
Okay. It's also safe to say that Presidio is leading this organizational discussion, and we're going to continue to lead and make sure that you guys are well informed.
Absolutely.
Is it also safe to say that the harder it gets, the better it is for those people who want to work hard?
I would agree.
All right.
This will weed out people that just can't seem to do it. So this is going to be a great thing. We look at it very positive. And as JD just said, Jen and I, we sit on some very high boards, NAR, UAR, and the Salt Lake board, and some of you others are board of directors in your boards too. So you'll be kept informed of things. And then we will obviously pass them down to you. We're going to stay ahead of this, not play catch up to it. So already be thinking, your scripts on what you need to do in case a seller doesn't offer much and you want to get more as a buyer's agent. We have scripts here and we're providing you all the information you have as well. And so you can always reach out to me, ask me questions, email me. As you know, I'm the new principal broker for the company as well. That's almost official with the division. So my phone is ready for you anytime. So yes, yes,
Sorry, will we get a copy of the scripts?
they're in this packet.
Okay.
And for those online, it's in the chat.
Yep.
One question about this is, in this scenario, what if they say, I want this house, but I don't want you to be my agent anymore because I want to not pay you?
Yeah, you need to obviously, so like, again, you have to have the contract ahead before you can even show that house. So they don't even have that. Well, you should be doing that anyway.
But they
So-
can lower the amount on it.
If you have a contract, they can't. It's a contract. It's a binding contract.
It can't be unilaterally lowered.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So would it be safe to say that we talk a lot about buyer's agent because this mostly affects buyer's agents.
Correct.
But this is also we're gonna have a lot of questions from sellers at this point, like, oh, I hear I don't have to pay that, I'm only going to pay you the 3%. So it's a time to start actually educating. I'm doing a listing
Yep.
today. I'm educating the sellers right now. This is what you're offering, this is what will happen. So I'm gonna start educating them right now about, yes, you can pay me just whatever we agree to, but be aware that we may get buyer's agents commissions that will want to negotiate that commission. How do you feel about that? What's going to be your response, and not wait until somebody actually makes that offer and then the seller panics.
Exactly. And if you need to make an adjustment to your listing agreement, you just do it through the addendum to it. Okay? Yes.
And you may not know the answer yet, but what will happen to those listings that already have the 3% when this change happens?
So once you get a federal regulation and a court order, it trumps all our state forms and everything. So you'll have to make adjustments. You'll have to do an addendum or new listing agreement or something. If they change their mind.
If they don't change their mind, they're still good.
Yeah, they can still offer it. Absolutely. Just business as usual.
Will our listing agreement still have a BBC area?
They're
so
gonna
that
make
we
some
know?
changes to it, and what the forms committee changes will be, we'll have to wait and see.
Like, because we're having the conversation up front and they agree to something
Yep.
with us, are we gonna have somewhere we can have that in writing?
Yeah, so that's the nice thing about our form is that they have to have that conversation of you agreed to pay the buyer's agent this much already. So I like it still being there.
So any transactions that we're doing now are not gonna be grandfathered when this changes?
No, there's gonna be no
So it's going
grandfathering.
to be a cutoff, say, okay,
Yeah.
that agreement you had is no longer valid the way it is, you're gonna have to do a new agreement. So let's say
No.
somebody's agreeing to pay
Yeah,
5%.
yeah, yeah,
And you've agreed 2.5% each one.
right.
When they
Here in Utah-
institute the ruling, what happens with my original agreement?
Right.
That's my question.
So here in Utah, our forms are already compliant with everything they've got. So our forms will still stay valid.
Okay,
Yeah.
so our forms right now are
Mhm.
not going to be showing a split. It's just gonna show whatever the seller is paying us. And there will be no split in there. There's no declare, because this
No.
only happened a few years ago.
It already has the
So
split.
I know it has
Yeah.
a split, but the question is, and it's okay to have it in that form as long as it's not on the MLS, is what you're saying.
Correct.
So that form will
Correct.
be grandfathered in. You won't
Yes,
have to do new listing
Right.
agreements to make any changes.
right. Because the form and the contract is with the brokerage. So,
So the July
I have a comment.
okay.
remove all the VACs.
It's already, yeah.
On now.
When the ruling takes place and is official and accepted by the judge, that's the deadline it has to happen. Most of everybody's already doing it now. Yes,
There's no big
So I see
sign.
a lot more limited agencies happening.
yes. So that's a great point. There will be a lot more limited agencies and unrepresented buyers happening.
How are we handling?
And so you've got to be prepared to, how are you going to negotiate with your seller when that happens?
Do you think that there will be like a better form talking about that?
Yes, absolutely. UAR is going to put one out.
I think that's gonna cause more.
I do not like it. It's going to cause more lawsuits. That's where all the problems come from, are from that. So-
how will Presidio, I mean, because I know we don't allow limited agency within the brokerage.
We do allow it, we just don't like it.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to like it a little more, unfortunately. But we're gonna have to make sure that the contracts are filled out properly, that the limited liability forms are filled out properly ahead of time, way before the offer happens, stuff like this. I mean, before the offer is accepted. Yeah, I want it done right.
Are we still gonna be able to do open houses with the rule that you have to have a buyer agency agreement signed before showing?
That's a great question. Nobody has asked yet. I will get an answer for you. Okay.
What was the question?
So that question was, are they still going to allow open houses and people to come by an open house without having a buyer broker agreement signed? We'll see. You have a question online?
I
Lori
do.
Fleming?
I have a question. So
Go.
if they've taken off the BBC off the MLS already, and we're under contract, do we need to put an addendum in to make sure that that is recognized or the?
I would recommend that. If there's no buyer agency right now being offered, then you should put together.
Well, there
the-
was when we made the offer, but you're saying that they've been taken off now.
It's on yesterday.
I think it's still on there.
Oh, is it still on? Okay.
It's still on there.
I also have a comment. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Have a listing and a unrepresented buyer calls you and says, hey, can you come by and show it to me? In this new world, are we going to have them sign something before they?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But you can have it specifically to that property.
You can have it specific to one property.
Even if it's your own listing.
Even if,
Listing agent.
well,
Absolutely.
if you can't, they have to, I won't allow, let's put it this way, you will be in so much jeopardy if you're selling your own listing and somebody comes by and is unrepresented now. That's bad because you're the agent, you're the seller, so you're the principal, and then you're gonna control the narrative. Oh.
Like your own listing. Just not as a, not as
Okay.
a seller, but like as if you're listing, you have a listing.
Uh-huh.
Somebody comes by and says, I wanna see this house, you have to have them sign something. Either
Yep.
you're the listing agent.
Yep, absolutely. They can't see a property at all. And so it's either unrepresented or the BBA. Yes. Well, the public did this, right? So the public gets what the fallout. They can still be unrepresented. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
This may be hypothetical, because I don't know what the changes on the listing agreement will be, but for sellers, in the case of a multiple offer, I mean, are they dependent, well, I'll pay them 2%, I'll pay this one 2.5%. I mean, is that gonna fluctuate or is that a set?
Wow.
That's gonna be part of the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, that's what I
And it
told
might
you.
end up being negotiating depending on the offer.
With buyer's agents are gonna be the ones negotiated in a deal now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Because when it comes to multiple offers, it's gonna be which agent's willing to take
Yeah.
the
Yes. Yes, and they'll accept that
Yeah.
offer.
Yeah, and we should be a part of the
Yeah.
negotiation. That's
Yeah.
the rule.
Yeah.
No other problem.
Yeah.
Anything online, Tana?
Well, no, because you've got.
You did have a comment. Do you still have a comment?
Contract with that buyer.
Well,
I guess.
my comment had to do with open house, where somebody shows up to your open house and does not want to sign a buyer broker or sign anything. Are we still required to show them the house?
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the settlement.
What was
The open
What
house
was the
question.
The
The open house
I
question.
didn't hear.
What happens? If you're doing an open house if somebody comes in, are you required to show them the house? So,
If they refuse to sign a buyer broker at the time.
yeah, there may be something. We'll have to figure that out. I don't have that answer yet. So open houses will be one. Chris?
With the settlement money, I know the DOG is getting paid, but who does the money go to from the settlement money?
What do you say, Chris?
So at this point, DOJ is not involved in this.
Oh, who gets paid?
Yeah, the lawyers get paid.
Just the 400.
And everybody else who's on the class action lawsuit gets $10. They
Unless they
said.
do a kickback.
So you gotta
The attorney
know how many
told me-
lawyers are talking about their money we're paying on them?
I do not know that.
Do you have a ballpark idea?
I know there's one in Missouri.
Oh, one.
No, but there's a whole class action team that they're dealing with. And then how is it trickling down to the other lawsuit? And then the ones that are even named here in Utah, right? And so this is a blanket settlement to wipe all them out. And so the original companies that paid off people, like Remax and whoever else was dumping money into it foolishly, they're all covered as well. But this 400 and whatever million goes and covers nationwide. Everybody except what I said, the companies that made over $2 billion in residential. So, yes, sir.
I have another question.
One
I
sec.
own it. Am I gonna have to, if somebody comes unrepresented, I have to make sure they're represented?
Yeah, you're gonna have to get them to sign that. See, that's the tricky part I'm saying now is there's more liability on you as an owner agent to show somebody who's not represented. So you're gonna have to make sure, because what happens when somebody's unrepresented? Do they bring a rep C? Generally, no, you have to provide a rep C. They have to fill it out, right? It gets tricky. It's gonna get trickier as the principal doing that.
Even on
So
commercial, doesn't matter.
commercial's a whole different ballgame. This is only residential we're talking about. Commercials, they're not realtors. They're not part of NAR generally. If they are, then it's still commercial is not being involved in this. It's all residential.
Just so.
So,
Because commercial is wildly fluctuates on.
yep,
commissions.
absolutely. They don't even want to disclose it to the tax people right now. We're fighting that, so.
Wow.
Okay, yes, Chrissy.
Tell me if I'm wrong with this, but I did this on a deal and it worked great. I told my buyers up front that it was a 3% commission because we were working with the builder. The builder was only willing to pay 2%. When we went to the loan officer, I said, you need to add my commission on the loan disclosure. So up front, my buyers knew exactly what all of their closing costs were with my full commission on there. And I got the seller to pay enough closing costs to them that it covered my thing, plus the 2% commission. But it was in the loan disclosure up front, so they knew exactly what my closing costs were and the loan closing costs. So I think that's a good way to do it so that your buyers are not surprised at the end when the settlement comes or settlement statement, to just disclose it upfront with your loan officer, whoever
Right,
you're working with.
right. What do you think of that, Terry?
That will not work with FHA or VA.
I'm so in, I'll put it on the CD, hands down, right away.
Right.
It can create it's going to be an interesting topic of conversation at the closing table, you guys. So if you're not attending closings, please make sure, I know you guys are all professionals here, you attend all of your closings, but please make sure that you and your lender are, especially if you're rolling it into the closing costs, because they may look at stuff, and honestly, I had 2 key first-time home buyers yesterday look across the table from me like, why are you speaking Chinese when it's been gone through 3 or 4 times with them? So I think communication is going to be super, super crucial. And commission instructions, please, guys, as title friends, the more instruction you can give us, we love. Please over communicate with us on how you guys want to be paid.
And that won't
Right.
work with every type of-
Right, so it won't. So that's why legislation has to change FHA and VA and Freddie Mac and all
So it
that.
wasn't a loan, it was a real estate fee, but they can put it on their loan disclosure.
Hey,
As far
that
as I
lender
understand.
accepted it, underwriters accepted it, that's great.
It just goes in the other sections, that's all. It just
Yeah,
goes
it
at the
goes in the
bottom.
other-
It's just like the admin fee that you guys charge.
Right,
For my brain, that's where I immediately go, oh, it's gonna show here at settlement statement. It's not sad, that's where my brain goes, but I know exactly where it's gonna go in at.
right.
So we can, but people still wanna go over those fees, so just know, there
Yep.
could be additional questions that come up for you.
Okay, just to wrap this up. This is not the time to panic at all. We're not panicking. It's the time that we're just gonna make some adjustments, and we'll make those adjustments legally by our forms. So the forms committee is gonna be working hard through UAR to adjust those. We will train you all on them. We will practice whatever we gotta practice, and we'll stay ahead of it. Okay? All right, that's all the time I have. How many people are online, Tana?
61, you had 66.
Wow, wow. Okay, so that's all for this. Thank you. If you want to attend the Ohana Title CE class on relationships, you're welcome to stay.
Yeah, y'all are here, I mean, it's 1 hour.
It's 1 hour CE, and relationships are the most important thing in your